Day's boots splashed through puddles of green acid as he ran across the empty streets of New Seoul Colony. The rain burned everything it touched. His energy shield crackled and sparked above his head, the only thing keeping him alive in this deadly storm. The colony was supposed to be safe. That's what the Earth government told everyone when they sent thousands of families here to Vega 7. A new home among the stars, they said. Nobody mentioned the acid rain that fell for weeks at a time. Day pulled his jacket tighter and kept moving. His shield was already running low on power. The little blue bar on his wrist device showed only 30% left. Not good. He needed to find shelter fast. That's when he saw the crashed ship. It was stuck nose first into the side of a building, smoke rising from its broken hull. The metal was already melting from the acid rain. Day had seen crashes before, but something made him stop and look closer. A figure lay crumpled near the wreckage. Day's first thought was to keep walking. Dead bodies were common after crashes. The rain would dissolve them soon enough. But then he saw movement. Just a slight twitch of fingers. Someone was alive. He ran closer and stopped cold. The person wasn't human. Her skin was silver, actually silver, like polished metal. But it wasn't metal at all. It was real skin, soft and warm, when he touched her neck to check for a pulse. Her clothes looked like they were made from liquid starlight, shifting and flowing even as she lay still. The rain was eating at her skin, leaving dark burns across her arms and face. She was dying. Day looked at his shield generator. 28% now. If he expanded the shield to cover both of them, it would drain twice as fast. He might not make it to shelter. He didn't think about it for long. The shield hummed and grew wider, covering the strange silver girl. The rain stopped, hitting her immediately. Day scooped her up in his arms, surprised by how light she felt. She was tall, almost as tall as him, but weighed no more than a child. Her eyes fluttered open for just a moment. They were completely black, like looking into deep space. She tried to say something, but only made soft clicking sounds before falling. Unconscious again. Day started running, the girl in his arms and his shield protecting them both. 25% power left. The nearest shelter was 6 blocks away through the maze of melting buildings. His muscles burned as he carried her. The acid rain pounded against his shield like angry fists. Every step sent jolts of pain through his legs, but he didn't slow down. Human colonists learned early that you never left anyone behind. It didn't matter if they were human or not. The rain got heavier. His shield flickered and sparked. 20%, 15%. The girl's silver skin had stopped burning, but the damage was already done. Dark marks covered half her face. Day turned the corner and saw it, an old mining building with thick concrete walls. The door was already open, creaking in the wind. He sprinted the last 50 meters as his shield hit 10%. They made it inside just as the generator died completely. Day set the girl down gently on the dry floor and collapsed beside her, breathing hard. Outside, the acid rain continued to fall, but they were safe now. He looked at the strange silver girl and wondered who she was, and why her ship had crashed on his world. The old mining building smelled like rust and forgotten dreams. Day dragged the silver girl deeper inside, away from the door where acid rain still splattered through cracks in the concrete. His footsteps echoed in the empty space. He found a dry corner and gently laid her down on his jacket. The emergency kit from his belt contained basic supplies, bandages, antiseptic, pain pills meant for humans. Would any of it even work on her? Day opened a small bottle of clean water and dabbed at the acid burns on her face. Her silver skin felt warm and surprisingly soft, like touching moonlight. The burns looked bad, dark patches spreading across her cheek and down her neck. As he worked, something amazing happened. The burns started getting smaller. Day blinked and looked closer. The dark marks were actually shrinking, her silver skin healing itself right before his eyes. In 5 minutes, the worst burns had faded to light marks. In 10 minutes, they were completely gone. "What are you?" he whispered. Her black eyes opened suddenly, staring right at him. Day jerked back, almost dropping the water bottle. She sat up slowly, those strange dark eyes never leaving his face. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle, Breeze, thank you. The words came out wrong, like she was learning to use her mouth for the first time, but it was definitely human language. You can talk? Day asked. She nodded carefully. I am lost traveler. Ship broken. Rain hurt much. Her grammar was all mixed up, but Day understood. He'd heard worse from new colonists who didn't speak standard. Very well, what's your name? He asked. She paused, those black eyes searching his face. Hana. I am... Hana. I'm Day. You're safe now. Hana looked around the empty building, then back at him. You save Hana. Why? The question caught him off guard. Because you needed help. That's what people do. She tilted her head like she'd never heard such a thing before. Day watched her examine her own arms, touching the places where the burns had been. Her clothes were doing something impossible too. Where the acid had eaten holes in the fabric, new threads were growing like living things, weaving themselves back together. Your clothes are fixing themselves, Day said. Hana looked down and nodded, like this was perfectly normal. She reached into a pocket that definitely hadn't been there before and pulled out a small device. It looked like a pearl made of light, glowing softly in her palm. The device hummed with quiet energy. Day had worked with advanced tech his whole life, but he'd never seen anything like this. It didn't even look like technology. It looked like captured starlight. What is that? He asked. Medicine, Hana said. She held it out to him. For you. I'm not hurt. Shield machine tired. This help. Day looked at his shield generator on his belt. The power indicator was dead, showing 0%. But as Hana's device hummed nearby, the blue bar flickered back to life. Not much, maybe 5%, but something. How did you do that? Hana's face almost smiled. Hana, people good with energy. We give, we take, we share. She was clearly from somewhere far beyond human space. Her technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth had developed. So why was she alone on a mining colony? Crashed and injured? Where are you from, Hana? Her smile disappeared. She looked toward the door where rain still pounded against the building. Very far, she whispered. Too far to go back. The storm got worse on the second day. Day woke up to the sound of metal dissolving. Through the cracked windows, he could see the acid rain eating through abandoned vehicles on the street. What used to be a hovercar was now just a puddle of smoking metal. Storm very angry, Hana said from across the room. She was sitting cross-legged near the wall, that glowing device floating above her palm. Somehow she'd figured out how to make it give off heat. The whole corner felt warm and comfortable. Day's stomach rumbled loudly. He opened his emergency pack and counted what was left. 2 protein bars, some dried fruit, and a few water tablets. Maybe enough for 3 days if he was careful. He broke 1 protein bar in half and offered it to Hana. You eat, she said, pushing it back toward him. We both eat, Day replied firmly. That's how it works. Hana stared at the food like she'd never seen anything like it. She took a tiny bite and made a face. Tastes like... She searched for the word. Like metal. Day laughed. Yeah, emergency rations aren't exactly gourmet, but they keep you alive. Outside, lightning flashed green through the storm clouds. Each bolt made the acid rain glow for a moment before returning to its normal deadly grey. On your world, Day asked, what do you eat when food runs out? Hana was quiet for a long time. Hana people not run out. We make food from light, from air, from nothing. That sounds useful. But not here, she said sadly. This place too sick. Air wrong. Light wrong. Everything wrong. That night, Day tried to sleep near the entrance so he could watch for danger. The building had thick walls, but you never knew what might try to get in during a storm. Wild animals, desperate people, sometimes worse things. He woke up in the sea. Middle of the night to find Hana standing right by the door. What are you doing? He whispered. Watching, she replied. You sleep. Hana watch. You should rest. You're still hurt. She turned to look at him, her black eyes reflecting the green, lightning outside. Day save Hana life. Now Hana protect Day. That's not how it works. You don't owe me anything. But she just shook her head and turned back to the door. By the 3rd day, Day's shield generator was down to 12%. Every time he recharged, With Hana's device, it seemed to drain faster afterward. Human technology wasn't meant to work with whatever energy she used. They were down to their last protein bar when Hana asked him something that surprised him. "Why day people still alive? What do you mean?" She gestured toward the storm outside. "This world try kill everything. Rain burn, air poison, ground shake, but humans still here. Why not dead?" Day thought about it. "Because we don't give up, I guess. When things get bad, we adapt. We help each other. We find a way. Other people not do this? Some do. But humans..." Day paused, trying to find the right words. "We're stubborn. Really, really stubborn." Hana almost smiled at that. On the fourth night, she asked him about Earth, about families and friends and the things humans did when they weren't fighting to survive. Day told her about his sister back on the homeworld, about the games kids played in the streets, about how people gathered to share meals and stories. "Sounds nice," Hana said softly. "It is. Maybe when this storm ends, I can show you some of it." She was quiet for a long time after that. When Dai finally fell asleep, Hana was still standing guard by the door, her glowing device casting warm light across the cold concrete floor. She was beginning to understand something important about humans. They weren't the strongest or the smartest species in the galaxy, but they had something else, something that kept them alive when everything else died. They never stopped caring about each other. The sound came through the storm like thunder that wouldn't stop. Day pressed his face against the cracked window, trying to see through the acid rain. 3 dark shapes were dropping from the clouds, their engines fighting against the wind. These weren't rescue ships or supply drops. These were military vessels, sleek and dangerous. "Hana," he called over his shoulder, "come look at this." But when he turned around, Hana was already backing away from the window. Her silver skin had gone pale, almost white. Her hands were shaking. "No, no, no," she whispered, those black eyes wide with fear. "They find Hana. They find." The terror in her voice made Day's blood run cold. He'd seen scared people before, but this was different. This was the kind of fear that came from knowing exactly what would happen to you. "Who are they?" Day asked. Hana couldn't seem to speak. She just kept backing toward the far wall, her breathing quick and shallow. The ships landed with heavy thuds that shook the building. Through the rain, Day could see figures moving around the vessels. They wore some kind of armor that shimmered like oil on water, and they carried weapons that hummed with energy. Dai didn't need to know who they were or why they wanted Hana. The look on her face told him everything he needed to know. These people meant to hurt her. His mind shifted into a different mode, the one that had kept him alive during the colony wars. The civilian part of his brain shut down, replaced by something colder and more focused. "How many?" he asked himself, counting the figures outside. 8, maybe 10, armed and armored, professional. He looked around the mining building with new eyes. Not a shelter anymore, but a battlefield. The main entrance was the obvious problem. Wide open, impossible to defend, but there was a loading dock on the east side, mostly blocked by fallen concrete. A maintenance shaft led down to the old mining tunnels, and the roof had a hole where a support beam had fallen through. 3 ways in, 3 ways out. He could work with that. "Hana," he said, keeping his voice calm, "I need you to listen to me very carefully." She was still pressed against the wall, but her eyes focused on him. "See that shaft over there? The one that goes down?" She nodded. "If things go bad, you go down there and you keep going until you find a way out. Don't wait for me, don't look back, just run. But Day, no arguments, you run and you survive. That's an order." Day started moving around the room, gathering anything that might be useful. A piece of broken rebar from the floor, some old mining cables that could work as tripwires, a few chunks of concrete that would make good distractions. Outside, the armored figures were spreading out, surrounding the building. They moved like they'd done this before, like they were very good at hunting people down. "They're very dangerous," Hana whispered. "Kill many people, hurt many families." "Yeah? Well, they haven't met many humans." Day positioned himself near the main entrance, using an overturned table as cover. His shield generator showed 8% power. Not much, but it would have to do. The first mistake the hunters made was assuming they were dealing with a normal hiding spot. They approached the entrance directly, weapons ready but not expecting real resistance. The second mistake was not knowing how humans fought when cornered. Day waited until they were almost at the door, then kicked over a pile of metal scraps he'd arranged earlier. The noise echoed through the building, making it sound like someone was running toward the back exit. Half the hunters immediately moved to cover the rear of the building. Now the odds were better. 4 against 1 instead of 8 against 1. Still terrible odds, but Day had worked with worse. The remaining hunters stepped through the entrance, their weapons scanning the shadows. Their armor might protect them from most things, but Day knew something they didn't. Human tactics weren't about being stronger or having better weapons. They were about being unpredictable, stubborn, and just a little bit crazy. Time to show them what that meant. The sound came through the storm like thunder that wouldn't stop. Day pressed his face against the cracked window, trying to see through the acid rain. 3 dark shapes were dropping from the clouds, their engines fighting against the wind. These weren't rescue ships or supply drops. These were military vessels, sleek and dangerous. "Hana," he called over his shoulder. "Come look at this." But when he turned around, Hana was already backing away from the window. Her silver skin had gone pale, almost white. Her hands were shaking. "No, no, no," she whispered, those black eyes wide with fear. "They find Hana. They find." The terror in her voice made Day's blood run cold. He'd seen scared people before, but this was different. This was the kind of fear that came from knowing exactly what would happen to you. "Who are they?" Day asked. Hana couldn't seem to speak. She just kept backing toward the far wall, her breathing quick and shallow. The ships landed with heavy thuds that shook the building. Through the rain, Day could see figures moving around the vessels. They wore some kind of armor that shimmered like oil on water, and they carried weapons that hummed with energy. Day didn't need to know who they were or why they wanted Hana. The look on her face told him everything he needed to know. These people meant to hurt her. His mind shifted into a different mode, the one that had kept him alive during the colony wars. The civilian part of his brain shut down, replaced by something colder and more focused. "How many?" he asked himself, counting the figures outside. 8, maybe 10, armed and armored, professional. He looked around the mining building with new eyes. Not a shelter anymore, but a battlefield. The main entrance was the obvious problem. Wide open, impossible to defend. But there was a loading dock on the east side, mostly blocked by fallen concrete. A maintenance shaft led down to the old mining tunnels, and the roof had a hole where a support beam had fallen through, 3 ways. In, 3 ways out. He could work with that. "Hana," he said, keeping his voice calm, "I need you to listen to me very carefully." She was still pressed against the wall, but her eyes focused on him. "See that shaft over there, the one that goes down?" She nodded. "If things go bad, you go down there and you keep going until you find a way out. Don't wait for me. Don't look back, just run." "But Day—" "No arguments. You run and you survive. That's an order." Day started moving around the room, gathering anything that might be useful. A piece of broken rebar from the floor, some old mining cables that could work as tripwires, a few chunks of concrete that would make good distractions. Outside, the armored figures were spreading out, surrounding the building. They moved like they'd done this before, like they were very good at hunting people down. "They very dangerous," Hana whispered. "Kill many people, hurt many families." "Yeah, well, they haven't met many humans." Day positioned himself near the main entrance, using an overturned table as cover. His shield generator showed 8% power, not much, but it would have to do. The first mistake the hunters made was assuming they were dealing with a normal hiding spot. They approached the entrance directly, weapons ready but not expecting real resistance. The second mistake was not knowing how humans fought when cornered. Day waited until they were almost at the door, then kicked over a pile of metal scraps he'd arranged earlier. The noise echoed through the building, making it sound like someone was running toward the back exit. Half the hunters immediately moved to cover the rear of the building. Now the odds were better. 4 against 1 instead of 8 against 1. Still terrible odds, but Day had worked with worse. The remaining hunters stepped through the entrance, their weapons scanning the shadows. Their armor might protect them from most things, but Day knew something they didn't. Human tactics weren't about being stronger or having better weapons. They were about being unpredictable, stubborn, and just a little bit crazy. Time to show them what that meant. The first hunter stepped into Day's trap. Perfectly. Day had stretched mining cable across the doorway at ankle height, almost invisible in the shadows. The armored figure went down hard, his weapon clattering across the concrete floor. "Now!" Day shouted. He grabbed Hannah's hand and pulled her toward the maintenance shaft. Behind them, angry voices shouted in a language he didn't recognize. Energy. Blasts scorched the walls where they'd been standing seconds before. The shaft was a tight squeeze, barely wide enough for one person. Day pushed Hannah ahead of him and followed, pulling the metal cover shut just as more energy blasts lit up the room above. "Down. Keep going down," he whispered. The tunnel sloped steeply into the old mining network. Water dripped from every surface, and the air smelled like rust and decay. Their footsteps echoed no matter how quietly they tried to move. Hannah's glowing device provided the only light, casting weird shadows on the tunnel walls. Behind them, Day could hear the hunters forcing open the shaft cover. "This way," he said, pulling her into a side tunnel. The mining complex was huge, built back when Vega 7 still had valuable minerals to extract. Dozens of tunnels branched in. Every direction, most of them flooded or collapsed. Day had explored some of them during his first weeks on the colony, back when he thought this might actually be a peaceful place to live. Now that knowledge might keep them alive. They splashed through knee-deep water that glowed faintly green. Acid runoff from the storm above. It ate at their boots and made their skin itch, but it wouldn't kill them quickly like the rain outside. "Day," Hannah whispered. "Your foot." He looked down and saw smoke rising from his left boot. The acid water had eaten through the sole. His sock was already dissolving. "It's fine," he lied. "Keep moving." Behind them, the hunters' voices echoed through the tunnels. They were getting closer. Day led them deeper into the maze, through passages that got narrower and more dangerous. Once they had to crawl under a collapsed beam that could have crushed them if it shifted. Another time they squeezed through a crack in the wall barely wide enough for their bodies. The hunters were having trouble following. Their bulky armor wasn't made for tight spaces, but they were persistent, and they had better equipment. "Motion scanners," Day muttered as he heard the distinctive beeping sound echoing through the tunnels. "They're tracking our movement," he pulled Hannah into an alcove and activated his shield generator. 6% power left. The energy field flickered weakly around them. "We need to get to the surface," he said. "Find another building, somewhere they can't corner us." "Outside is poison rain," Hannah reminded him. "Better than being trapped down here." They found an old elevator shaft that led up to ground level. The elevator was long gone, but maintenance ladders still ran up the sides. Day went first, testing each rung before putting his full weight on it. Halfway up, his shield generator died completely. Acid water dripping from above hit his shoulders and back, burning through his shirt. Hannah tried to cover him with her body, letting the acid hit her instead. Her skin healed the burns almost instantly. "Don't," Day said through gritted teeth. "Save your strength." "You save Hannah many times. Hannah save you now." They climbed faster, racing the acid that kept dripping down. Day's back felt like it was on fire, but he didn't stop. Below them, the hunters had found the shaft. The exit hatch was rusted shut. Day threw his shoulder against it again and again until it finally gave way. They tumbled out into the storm, acid rain immediately soaking them both. Day's shield was dead. The rain hit him like liquid fire, burning his skin and clothes, but he grabbed Hannah's hand and kept running. Across the street, around a corner, through an alley between two melting buildings, the hunters burst from the shaft behind them, their armor protecting them from the rain. They were gaining ground fast. Day's vision started to blur from the acid burns. His legs felt weak, but when he looked at Hannah, running beside him through the poison rain, he saw something in her black eyes he'd never seen before. Wonder. Like she couldn't believe someone would do this for her. No one had ever risked their life for her before. No one had ever chosen to suffer so she could be free. That's when she realized something important about humans. They didn't just survive because they were stubborn. They survived because they never left each other behind. They found themselves trapped in the deepest part of the mine. The tunnel ended at a massive cave-in. tons of rock and twisted metal blocking any escape. Behind them, the hunters' voices echoed closer and closer. Day's skin was covered in acid burns, his clothes hanging in tatters. Every breath hurt. "Dead end," he gasped, leaning against the stone wall. Hannah's device cast eerie shadows in the cramped space. She was healing his burns as fast as she could, but there were too many. Her silver skin was pale with exhaustion. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "This is Hannah's fault, all Hannah's fault." "Nobody's fault," Day said. "Bad luck. Happens sometimes." But Hannah shook her head violently. Tears were running down her face, actual tears, that glowed softly in the darkness. "No. You not understand. You say wrong person." The hunter's footsteps were getting louder. "Maybe 5 minutes before they found this hiding spot." "There's no wrong person," Day said firmly. "You needed help. I helped. That's it." "But you don't know what Hannah is." Something in her voice made him look at her more carefully. The fear was still there, but now there was something else. Shame, guilt, the kind of pain that came from carrying a terrible secret. "So tell me," he said quietly. Hannah's hands were shaking as she reached into that impossible pocket in her clothes. She pulled out another device, this one shaped like a crystal that pulsed with red light. "Hannah's real name is Princess Hannah Veltar, daughter of War Commander Veltar of the Stellar Empire." The words hit Day like a physical blow. Everyone in human space knew that name, War Commander Veltar, the butcher who had ordered the burning of Earth's colonies, the monster who turned entire worlds into ash and called it pest control. Day's jaw clenched. His free hand slowly curled into a fist. "Your father killed 3 billion people," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes. He ordered the attack on New Geneva. My sister lived there." "Yes. She was 12 years old." Hannah's tears flowed harder. "Hannah, so sorry. So sorry." For a moment, the only sound was dripping water and distant footsteps. Day stared at this girl who had been his companion for days. This enemy princess he had risked everything to save. The smart thing would be to let go of her hand, walk away. Let the hunters take her back to wherever she came from. But he didn't let go. "Why are you here?" he asked instead. Hannah held up the crystal device. This contained battle plans, Father's, plans for final attack on human worlds, kill everyone, all humans, everywhere. You stole military secrets. Hannah's supposed to marry General Croven next week, unite Empire armies, make final war possible. But Hannah see plans, see what Father really want to do. She looked directly into his eyes. Cannot let happen, cannot marry monster, cannot help kill more children. The footsteps were very close now, voices echoing down the tunnel. "So you ran," Day said. "Hannah tried to find human leaders. Give them plans, let them prepare. But ship crash in storm, then hunters come." Her voice broke. "Now humans still die. Hannah fail everyone." Day looked at the crystal in her hands. Information that could save millions of lives. And she had risked everything to steal it. Had given up her family, her home, her entire world to try to save the people her father wanted to destroy. "You didn't fail," he said. "But plans still with Hannah. Humans not know about attack. Then we make sure they know." Hannah stared at him in shock. Die still help Hannah, even knowing truth? The hunters were almost at their hiding spot now. Energy. Weapons charging with deadly hums. Day squeezed her hand tighter. "So you're not your father," he said simply. "You chose to be better. That's what matters." In that moment, Hannah understood something else about humans. They didn't just judge people by where they came from or who their family was. They judged them by their choices, by their actions, by whether they tried to do the right thing even when it cost them everything. "Ready?" Day asked, looking toward the tunnel entrance. Hannah wiped her tears and nodded. "Ready." They might die in the next few minutes, but they would die together, fighting for something bigger than themselves. The hunters found them exactly. 3 minutes later, 8 soldiers in shimmering armor stepped into the dead-end tunnel, their weapons all pointed at Day and Hannah. The leader spoke in that musical language Day didn't understand, but the meaning was clear enough. "Surrender?" or Hannah slowly stood up, raising her hands. She answered in the same flowing language, her voice steady despite the tears still on her face. The soldiers looked surprised to hear her speak their tongue. The leader tilted his head, studying her more carefully. When recognition hit him, his weapon lowered slightly. He spoke again, this time with what sounded like respect. Maybe even fear. "What's he saying?" Day asked. "He know who Hana is," she whispered. "He say father very worried, very angry. Send many ships to find lost daughter." The leader gestured for Hana to step forward, away from Day. His meaning was obvious. "Come quietly and the human won't be hurt." Hana looked at Day, then back at the soldiers. She spoke in their language again, longer this time. Day caught one word he thought he recognized from her earlier explanations. "Friend." The leader's response was sharp and dismissive. He pointed his weapon directly at Day's chest. "He say, humans, not friends," Hana translated quietly. "He say humans are bugs, pests to be removed." Charming guy. Hana took a step toward the soldiers, her hands still raised. "Hana, go with them. They leave Day alone, promise." But Day moved faster. He stepped in front of her, putting himself between Hana and the weapons. "No deals," he said firmly. "Day, please. You can live. Go home. Find family. My family's dead, remember? Your father made sure of that." Day's voice wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Besides, humans don't abandon friends. But Hana cause all problems. Hana not worth dying for. Day turned to look at her, this silver-skinned girl who had stolen military secrets to save his people, who had cried over children she'd never met, who had tried to sacrifice herself to keep him safe. "Everyone's worth dying for," he said simply. "That's what makes us human." The leader was getting impatient. He barked orders at his soldiers, who spread out to cover every angle. There was no escape from this tunnel, no clever tricks left to... Day activated his shield generator one last time. The device flickered and sparked, showing 0% power. It managed to create a weak energy field for about 5 seconds before dying completely. The soldiers raised their weapons. That's when Hana did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She stepped up beside Day instead of moving away from him. "If Dai stay, Hana stay too," she announced in clear human language, loud enough for all the soldiers to hear. The leader looked shocked. He spoke rapidly in his own tongue, obviously trying to convince her to be reasonable. But Hana shook her head and answered in human words. "Hana learned something from humans, some things more important than living, some things worth dying for." She reached over and took Day's hand. Her skin was warm and soft, still healing from the acid burns she'd taken for him. "Friends not abandon." "Friends," she said, using his own words. The soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. They'd been sent to retrieve a runaway princess, not execute the war commander's daughter. But she was refusing to come quietly, standing with the enemy instead of her own people. The leader spoke into a communication device on his wrist, probably asking for orders from someone higher up the chain of command. Dai squeezed Hana's hand. "You sure about this? Last chance to walk away?" Hana already walk away from Empire. No going back now. Above them, thunder rumbled through the storm. Acid rain dripped through cracks in the ceiling, hissing where it hit the stone floor. The soldiers waited for their orders, weapons still trained on the unlikely pair. A human and an alien princess, standing together in the darkness, both ready to die for something they believed in, both refusing to abandon the other no matter what it cost them. The communication device crackled with an incoming message. The leader listened, his face hidden behind his helmet. Whatever the orders were, Day had a feeling they weren't going to like them. The orders came through crystal clear. Even without understanding the Empire language, Day could hear the cold authority in the voice from the communication device. The leader's posture stiffened, his weapon raised to firing position. "What did they say?" Day asked. Hana's face had gone completely pale. "Father say, bring back body if necessary. Dead daughter, better than daughter who help enemies." The words hung in the air like poison. A father willing to kill his own child rather than let her betray the Empire. Day felt sick to his stomach. "Some family you got there," he muttered. The soldiers began moving closer, weapons charging with that deadly humming sound. Their leader spoke one final warning in his musical language. Hana replied in the same tongue, her voice clear and strong. Whatever she said made the soldiers hesitate. "I tell them about the plans," she whispered to Day. "I tell them if they kill us, Humans will still know about attack. Do they believe you? No. They think plans still secret. The leader laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the tunnel walls. He gestured dismissively and gave another order. The soldiers raised their weapons to shoulder height. Final firing position. That's when Hana pulled out the crystal device containing the stolen battle plans. But she didn't just hold it. She pressed something on its surface, and the crystal began to glow brighter and brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. The soldiers realized what was happening a second too late. "Broadcasting beacon," Hana said calmly. "Now every human world received Father's plans. Every ship, every station, every colony. All of them know attack coming." The leader screamed something in his language and fired. Day threw himself in front of Hana, just as the energy blast lit up the tunnel. The shot meant for her hit him in the shoulder, spinning him around and slamming him into the rock wall. Pain exploded through his body. The smell of burned flesh filled the air, but he was still alive, still standing. "Day!" Hana caught him as he stumbled. More shots rang out, but they were aimed at the crystal device now, trying to stop the transmission. Too late. The beacon was already sending its signal across the galaxy, bouncing from relay station to relay station. Within minutes, every human commander would know exactly when and where the Empire planned to strike. The element of surprise was gone forever. The leader was screaming into his communication device, probably reporting the disaster to his superiors. The other soldiers looked confused, unsure whether to keep shooting or wait for new orders. "Did it work?" Day gasped, blood running down his arm. Hana checked the device. Signal sent to 47 human worlds. All major colonies received message. "Good." Day tried to smile through the pain. "Your father's going to be really mad at you. Father already wants Hana dead. Cannot be more angry." The soldiers were regrouping, preparing for another assault. But something had changed. They moved differently, now less confident. The mission had already failed in the worst possible way. Through the tunnel entrance, Day could see more shapes moving in the darkness. Reinforcements arriving. Soon this place would be crawling with Empire troops. "We should run," he said. "Where?" "No more tunnels. No more hiding places." She was right. They were trapped in this dead end with nowhere to go. But at least they'd accomplished something important. Human colonies would have time to prepare defenses. Millions of lives might be saved. Hana activated her healing device, trying to stop the bleeding from Day's shoulder. Her touch was gentle, careful not to cause more pain. "Hana, sorry," she whispered. "Sorry Day get hurt because of princess problems." "Not princess problems," Day corrected her. "Human problems, Empire problems, war problems. This is bigger than just us." The reinforcements were getting closer. Soon they'd be surrounded by an entire army. But for now, in this moment, it was just the two of them. A human colonist and an alien princess standing together against the darkness. Both of them had made their choice. Both had chosen to do what was right, even knowing it would probably cost them everything. That choice echoed across the galaxy now, carried by the signal Hana had sent. A message that would change the course of the war. An Empire daughter had chosen humanity over her own blood, and humanity would remember that choice forever. The communication devices started going crazy. Every soldier's wrist communicator was beeping, buzzing and flashing with incoming messages. The leader pressed his earpiece, listening to report after report. With each new message, his face grew darker. "What's happening?" Day asked. Hana listened carefully to the Empire chatter. "Human colonies responding to broadcast. Ships moving, weapons charging, many ships." The leader barked orders at his soldiers, but they seemed confused. Half of them kept their weapons trained on Day and Hana, while the others turned toward the tunnel entrance like they expected an attack. More messages poured in. The leader's confident posture began to crumble. "New Terra colony launching defense fleet," Hana translated. "Kepler station activating all weapon systems. Mars shipyards releasing entire battle group." She paused, listening to another frantic transmission. 17 human worlds declaring war on Empire, all at same time. Dai felt a grim satisfaction despite the pain in his shoulder. Your father's surprise attack just became a fair fight. The broadcast had done more than just warned the colonies. It had given them something they'd never had before, Advanced knowledge of Empire battle plans. Every strategy, every target, every weakness in the Empire's supposedly unstoppable war machine. Human commanders across the galaxy were already adapting. Those plans turning them against their creators. The leader received another message that made him step back in shock. He stared at Hana like she'd just destroyed his entire world, which Day realized she probably had. "What now?" he asked. "Empire High Command recall all ships," Hana said quietly. "Attack cancelled. They say Princess betrayal change. Everything." The soldiers were looking at each other uncertainly. They'd been sent to retrieve a runaway princess and eliminate a human witness. Simple mission. But killing the war commander's daughter in front of the entire galaxy was a different matter entirely. That's when they heard the new sound. Ship engines, different from the Empire vessels. These were rougher, louder, burning through the acid. Storm with raw power instead of elegant technology. Human ships. The tunnel filled with fresh light as the new arrivals broke through the storm clouds. Through cracks in the ceiling, Day could see at least 6 vessels descending fast. Colonial Defense Force markings were visible on their hulls. How did they find us? He wondered. Hana held up her crystal device, still glowing softly. Broadcast. Signal work both ways. Humans track source, find location. The Empire soldiers were in full panic now. Their leader was screaming into his communicator, probably demanding backup or extraction, but the storm was interfering with their signals, and human ships were jamming their frequencies. Outside, landing thrusters roared as the rescue fleet touched down. Boots splashed through acid puddles. Human voices called out, coordinating their assault on the building above. The leader made a desperate decision. He raised his weapon toward Hana one final time. "Stop!" The voice came from the tunnel entrance. A woman in colonial defense armor stepped into view, plasma rifle ready. Behind her, more human soldiers poured into the passage. Their equipment was battered and mismatched compared to Empire gear, but their faces showed absolute determination. "Let them go," the woman commanded in perfect Empire language. The enemy soldiers were completely surrounded now, caught between human forces and a dead-end tunnel, with their own command structure falling apart. The leader looked at his weapon, then at Hana, then at the dozen human soldiers pointing guns at him. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "Princess Hana," the woman said, switching to standard. "I'm Commander Silver. We've been looking for you." "You received broadcast?" Hana asked. "Every human world received it. Changed everything." Silver smiled grimly. "Your father's invasion fleet is in full retreat. Colonies are uniting like never before. War's not over, but the tide just turned." Day leaned against the tunnel wall, finally allowing himself to feel the exhaustion. The pain in his shoulder was getting worse, but he was alive. They were both alive. "What happens now?" he asked. Silver looked at Hana, then back at him. "Now we win this war, and we make sure the galaxy knows exactly who helped us do it." Hana squeezed Day's uninjured hand. "Humans not abandon friends," she said softly. "Now Hana understand why Father fear you so much." Above them, the acid rain continued to fall. But for the first time since the storm began, it felt like the beginning of something new instead of the end of everything. The war that would free humanity had finally begun. And it started with a simple choice. One human deciding to help a stranger, and one princess choosing to save her father's enemies. Sometimes the biggest changes came from the smallest acts of courage,